This week's episode of Aliens Explored is dedicated to our Explorer of the Week, Jonathan Perna. Jonathan has become one of our Patreons and is supporting us financially to help do what we love doing and which we know you love as well. If you want to become a Patreon and explore all sorts of offers we have at different levels, then follow our link to patreon.com/Aliens Explored, where I'm sure you'll find something that will suit your appetites and your budget. Thank you again, once again, Jonathan Perna, for being our Explorer of the Week.
Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? On April 24th, 1964, Police Sergeant Lonnie Zamora discovered a strange O-shaped object attended by two humanoid figures. But what did Sergeant Lonnie Zamora really see that day? Was it a military test vehicle, or perhaps a student prank, as has been suggested? Or was it really one of the best documented UFO sightings in US history? Join us on Aliens Explored as we investigate the 1964 Socorro UFO incident.
Welcome back, listeners, to Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast where we look at UFOs, extraterrestrials, all manner of weird and wonderful things. I'm one of your weird and wonderful hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your staid and sensible host, Neil Kelly.
The voice of reason. Is this how you're marketing
the voice
yourself
of reason,
now?
yes, I am. I've had enough of being out there. It's lonely.
It can be at times, but hey, I'm here.
I'm going to be just like everybody else.
Do you know what? I used to have a T-shirt. I've been thinking about getting one again that said, "You laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at you because you're all the same." I like that.
That's
T-shirt.
a bit confrontational, mate, I have to say.
It is. That's not.
It is a bit confrontational.
It's more mean-spirited than I normally get, but hey, when you've been laughed at as much as I have in life.
Actually, I mean, that could have racist connotations. If you were walking through Brixton and you were the only white person saying, "You're laughing at me because I'm different, I'm laughing at you because you're all the same. You all look like each other."
The idea that was based on that could be a race thing never occurred to me at all. Oh my!
You got to be very careful. There's a lot of nuance out there.
There is definitely nuance. Oh my goodness!
For our non-British listeners, I live in Brixton in southwest London, which has a very, very large African and Afro-Caribbean community. So, yes. Well, it's a multicultural environment.
I think London, generally speaking, is really diverse, isn't it?
It's very diverse. I don't think there's any city in the world that's more diverse than London. I don't think even New York, in terms of the number of ethnicities, the number of languages, the number of cultures that you're just stumbling over all the time. Right.
I mean, I'm not that well. I'm going to Chicago fairly soon. Okay. Anyway, you have been out and about quite recently, have you not, Neil?
I've been working. I've been earning a living, and I worked on a job that actually has some relevance to this show. I got a couple of days' work on a show that's on Apple TV called Invasion, and it's about an alien invasion. Sort of War of the Worlds type thing. Where I played, on day one, I played a refugee. And although I was wearing my thermals, I could not believe how cold it was. I thought I'd overdressed. I thought, well, I'll probably be too warm. But when you're doing background work, it's basically, well, sit here and actually, I was sitting in a soup kitchen, and when the camera came near, I had to pretend to eat soup. Well, I didn't actually put it in my mouth because it had all congealed by the time they got to me. But we were on the edge of this lake with this wind blowing right across the lake and straight onto us. It was freezing. Day 2, though, well, a lot of people got laid off after the first day. They reduced the number of supporting artistes from 400 to 250. I was quite jealous of the ones who'd been released. I wish I've got to come back here again tomorrow. And then I thought, oh yeah, it's a 5 a.m. call time, which meant I had to get up at 3 a.m. to get down the road to get the bus just after 4 a.m. to get onto the night buses aren't that frequent, so you can't. If you miss it, it's another half an hour for the next one. So I had to make sure that I was on time. But things were much better on the second day. The food was better. The organisation was better, and they also realised that they'd released all the people who were playing patients. So they suddenly said, right, we don't need you as a refugee today. We want you to be a patient. So I had to go to makeup, get gory makeup put on my face, and spent the day in bed.
Right.
Which is what I was in the mood for, actually. And until the end of the day when it was quite warm and sunny, and we were outside watching a UFO get destroyed.
Right.
Actually, is that a spoiler? Is anyone out there watching this series on Apple TV? It's series 2 now.
I don't know. Is it much of a spoiler that a UFO gets destroyed? Would that be much of a spoiler?
I don't know. I mean, I got the impression, just working as being a refugee in this huge refugee camp that they've built in Burgess Park, which is where I had to go for my COVID testing as well on Saturday and Sunday. And when I first saw it, I thought it was real. I thought, oh, there's a real refugee camp here in the park.
I thought you were going to say the UFO was real.
Yeah, being run by the World Defence Coalition, and I thought I never heard of that, but. And then, of course, realised, oh yeah, I'm going to be playing a refugee. This is the refugee camp I'm going to be in.
Do you want me to censor out the bit where you potentially give a spoiler?
I don't. Is it a potential spoiler? I mean,
I don't know.
I know we're not supposed to talk about what we're doing. We weren't not supposed to take any pictures or videos or anything like that.
No.
But I think to just say, we watched the UFO get destroyed. Well, that probably happens a fair bit in this.
You're not saying who destroys it. You're not saying how it gets destroyed. You're not saying what it looks like.
I'm not even going to tell you what my emotional response to seeing a UFO destroyed by a nuclear warhead just a few 100 feet above my head was.
Not much, I would have thought, if it's a nuclear warhead. They say that, kind of, the best place to be if there's a nuclear bomb goes off is right underneath it.
Ground zero. Yeah. You won't feel a thing, apparently.
That's going a bit dark. Yes. So you had a lovely cold time on set.
I had a lovely cold time.
A nice day in bed.
Loads of COVID testing, lots of COVID marshalling. They're very, very, even though officially all restrictions have been eased, they were very, very hot. We had to be tested on Saturday, again on Sunday. Then we turned up for work on Monday. Then we turned up for work on Tuesday. And all the time we're on set, anytime the cameras weren't rolling, there were people going around saying, put your mask on, put your mask on. It was
glad
masks
to
on
hear it.
all the time. Even if you're sat there having a drink, they would say, that someone would come up and say, as soon as you've taken another sip, put your mask on.
I'm glad to hear it because, yes, of course, at the time of recording, restrictions were lifted here in the UK a fortnight ago. And of course, we are seeing cases starting to go up through the roof. We are starting to see people admitted to hospital going up through the roof. And in a couple of weeks' time, we'll start to see people dying going up through the roof as well.
Who would have predicted that?
Oh, well,
Who would have predicted that?
So just a quick note to one person who I hope is listening to this episode. Fuck you, Nick Pope, you anti-mask. Anyway, not a fan. Not a fan. I'm getting obsessive about Nick Pope, and it's not.
How many people have died because of his advice?
Well, it's not. I mean, yeah, I don't think he's that influential, to be honest. But it perpetuates the whole. People are free to make their own health. Well, I'm not.
Yeah, you're free to make your own health decisions. You're not free to make decisions that affect other people.
Well, they are by people being allowed to not wear masks. They are free to make decisions that affect other people, like me.
Yeah,
because wearing a mask is about protecting other people, not about protecting yourself.
And I don't accept that. I mean, I know it's become hugely political in America. There's a big drive for children not to wear masks to schools in certain states, certain districts. And there's been a campaign, I think it's called My Child, My Choice, saying, this is my child, I'll decide whether they'll wear a mask or not. Yeah, but that decision affects other children who aren't yours.
Yes,
So
exactly.
You're being a little bit selfish here.
A little. Anyway, that's not what we're here to discuss.
How many listeners have we just lost? Goddamn penny waste liberals going on about.
No, if you disagree with us, listeners, write in and let us know.
Let us have it, both barrels.
We will give you the details for getting in touch with us at the end of the show. So you basically have to listen to our opinion for half an hour first. That's the price of being able to let us know.
However, we do concede that we are again a little bit off topic right now. That we're actually here to talk about something else. So you're not going to just listen to half an hour of us ranting on about.
We do have listeners who play drinking games where they take a drink every time we digress. So,
do they?
To those people, we're not being responsible for your Alcoholics Anonymous bills.
No, and we won't pay for your liver transplant.
Exactly. But yes, we are here to talk about this event back in 1964 in Socorro in New Mexico. Had you heard of this event, Neil? Prior to us,
I don't think I'd even heard of Socorro, New Mexico.
Okay, you've heard of New Mexico, obviously.
I've heard of New Mexico.
Famous for UFO events is New Mexico.
Yes, it is. It's right there on the UFO highway, isn't it?
It is. And this is 24th of April, 1964. Early evening, 5:45 p.m. It all starts off when we've got a police officer. Now, again, this comes up quite often with UFO reports. A police officer, so a highly credible witness again. Lonnie Zamora.
Well, that's
okay.
Really.
Oh, you're going to challenge this? Go on.
I mean, I know we tend to accept the testimony of people like police officers and military personnel as sound and unlikely to be given to fanciful, imaginative embellishments.
Yes.
But my experience with soldiers being in the army is that they will invent all sorts of shit.
Okay, I get that. I think what makes them so in my head, what makes police officers particularly good witnesses is these are people accustomed to making observations, writing down factual reports upon them. Far more, I mean, they do it on a daily basis as part of their job compared to a civilian. So I think that in of itself, they're probably more observant. They're probably more likely to keep to facts and less inclined towards hyperbole.
Well, but there's also a lot of evidence that they will alter their story. If there's a version of events in which they look bad, then they've been. There are plenty of cases where they've changed that. They've decided that they were they were responding professionally and correctly, and it was the other person who was in the wrong. The guy that they beat to death or shot. Or
do you know what? I'm taking that on board, and I agree with it. But I'm going to turn that on its head a little bit and say, especially sort of in the 60s when you had a lot of sort of toxic masculinity going off. I mean, you still have to a degree, not as bad as it was back then, though. And you would have people ridiculed for reporting UFOs. So I would say they're less likely to report a UFO formally as a result of that. So when they do report one, I think that makes it even more credible, in my view. That exact thing you're talking about, that proclivity to change the facts or to change what they've seen to suit them, because they might either get into bother or be ridiculed. Yeah.
And we also spoke in our last episode about a proclivity to become more aware of UFOs, having just seen a movie about UFOs, having just seen Close Encounters of the Third Time, which provoked a spike in sightings, or the X-Files in the late 1990s, which suddenly people suddenly became more aware or more likely to report paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena. We're looking at April 1964. Now, when did that show The Invaders come out? I'm just going to...
I think that was more late. I remember it being in colour, so I'm thinking either late 60s. Mind you, even Star Trek was late 60s.
Well, I watched it in black and white, so... Oh, okay.
But is that because you had a black and white TV?
Yeah, because... Yeah. For our American listeners, very few people in Britain had colour TV before the mid-1970s. It ran for 2 seasons from 1967 to 1968. So he hadn't just... Let's establish he hadn't just seen the show, which started every episode with a guy taking a shortcut on a lonely country road and seeing a massive flying saucer landing.
I mean, this isn't quite what happened in this case, though, because Lonnie Zamora, he receives a radio call to investigate a potential RTA, road traffic accident. He'd seen, it looked like sort of basically a big fireball go up. So he'd wondered if there was a local dynamite factory had exploded. He goes out and sees this shiny object, but he said it was shiny like aluminium, or he would have said aluminum.
Which is actually, for the benefit of our American listeners, aluminum is more correct than aluminium.
We've done that one. I still call it aluminium. But more like that than chrome. So it wasn't reflective, but it was shiny. A spherical object. He sees 2 humanoids in white one-piece, like basically white onesies. But they're small. He described them as being like small adults or large children.
Right.
He sees this blue and orange flame coming from underneath it. It shoots up into the sky and then zaps off.
Did he say shoots up into the sky and zaps off?
That
it actually it travelled fast.
No, it certainly travelled fast. Quickly moved away is the official. It rose and then quickly moved away.
So what was the big explosion that he saw?
That's no idea. Nobody seems to know. But if this object, if this vehicle was using thrusters, if it was using ignition to take off, presumably it would use ignition to arrest its descent as well.
Would it, if it was using anti-gravity drive? Would it?
Where have you got anti-gravity drive from?
Well,
it wouldn't need
don't
a
they all use anti-gravity drive? I mean, all these UFOs we've got whizzing around at phenomenal speeds without any sign of propulsion. Here we got one that's straight out of Flash Gordon, so blasts off and.
Well, that's it. It takes off with visible sign of propulsion
and roasts anyone who would have been standing within 100 feet of it.
Presumably, so one. I would make the assumption if it needs ignition to take off, then it would need ignition to arrest its descent as well. I don't think that's an unreasonable 2 plus 2 to make. So it's an unusual one.
It's an unusual one, and the attempts to explain it away aren't particularly credible. Two of them were, well, one of them was that it was actually people testing a lunar landing device. People from the White Sands missile range, in preparation for the lunar missions, were still a few years off, but obviously they were working out how they would get down to the moon, lurking with the lunar lander, and which doesn't sound very credible because we know the lunar lander wasn't anything like egg-shaped, and it would have had. I think this thing had feet, didn't it? It had landing gear, so it landed. And another explanation was that it was just students from a local school playing a prank.
That's a hell of a prank if they can create a spherical vehicle that rises up into the air and shoots off. Well, that's a hell of a prank.
Well, the then president of New Mexico Tech, a guy called Sterling Colgate, said that the object observed by Zamora was, quote, a candle in a balloon, not sophisticated. I don't imagine a candle in a balloon would rise very fast, wouldn't it?
No. I mean, the way he describes it, it sounds not unlike a hot air balloon. And certainly you can get hot air balloons in all kinds of shapes and sizes. I used to live in a city here in the UK called Bristol, and every year they have what's called the Bristol Balloon Fiesta, where people from all over the world come with their hot air balloons. You get hundreds and hundreds of them, and they are all, a lot of them are sponsored by companies, so you get like them shaped like houses and weird and wonderful
glasses
shapes.
of beer.
Yeah, exactly, and it's an amazing sight to see. But the way he describes it, it's spherical. It's got this blue and orange flame underneath it. My immediate thought was, that sounds like a hot air balloon. But then he sees these two people next to it. He doesn't describe any kind of basket.
No, they actually got inside it.
They actually get inside it. Now that potentially Zeppelin.
But with the Zeppelin, you're still riding in something underneath the balloon, aren't you?
I thought with the Zeppelin you could walk inside the large container, the large part.
I'm not sure. Well, you mean that there's actually
inside the balloon itself.
There are walkways between the gas bags. Maybe I don't know. Whenever I've seen pictures of Zeppelins, they seem to have all the sort of crew and everywhere that people would be sort of suspended beneath the balloon,
right,
rather than walking around inside it.
Okay,
because that would be more difficult to make, wouldn't it? Something where why would you want to why do you want to be inside the balloon?
I mean, there's gas, which presumably you want to breathe normally, and you don't want to be breathing. Is it helium? Hydrogen, isn't it?
Helium is safer. Helium is less flammable. Hydrogen can be very explosive, as the people on the Hindenburg Zeppelin found out. But it's not as explosive as it's made out, as they found when Zeppelins were bombing London and other targets in the First World War. They were extremely difficult to shoot down because you need to mix the hydrogen with the air, with oxygen. So you need to make a big hole in it and for your incendiary rounds to be able to ignite the gas inside. And I think it was in 1916, a pilot he won the Victoria Cross for this. He had a specially adapted plane with a machine gun that pointed, as he was sat in the plane, the machine gun pointed straight up rather than forwards. And he would fly under the Zeppelin, obviously receiving fire from the Zeppelin, but he flew underneath it so that he could maintain a constant speed and fire a sustained burst of alternate armour-piercing and incendiary rounds, a long sustained burst into the same spot to open it up, and eventually managed to get a fire going and brought the Zeppelin down. But yeah, it's not an easy thing. That's why it's long been suspected that the Hindenburg was sabotage, that it was actually a bomb on board that set it off.
Okay,
there's a conspiracy about that, like everything else. But yeah, this seems like a smaller object. I mean, I'm looking at this artist's impression of the UFO based on claims by Zamora. It's really not very big. It's a capsule.
I'm dismissing that picture completely because this has not, to my knowledge, been. Lonnie hasn't said, "Oh yes, that's what it looks like," or anything like that. This is purely someone coming up with that from their imagination, and it's one of those cases where Wikipedia will put an image there simply so that it shows up in searches.
Okay, so anyone who's going onto Wikipedia or other sites looking at this, it's don't trust the picture.
Disregard the image, yes.
As you know from watching hot air balloons coming over the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol, a balloon has to be pretty big to lift a person.
It really does.
Just with hot air.
It really does. However, I mean, from the description that he gave, yes, I'm gonna disregard a balloon, and certainly a balloon with a candle in. But you haven't mentioned what is maybe the most compelling explanation of all, put forward by UFO skeptic Stuart Campbell, who suggested that what Lonnie saw was almost certainly a mirage of the star Canopus. I mean, what utter fucking bollocks can you get? It's a mirage from a star. What? Yes, that'll create people in white outfits.
Yeah, but I mean, this story gained great credence. A few years later, the president of Socorro County's Chamber of Commerce proposed developing the site of the claimed UFO encounter so that tourists could come and see it. So stone walkways and steps were built into something called an arroyo. I think I'm pronouncing that right, arroyo, which is a kind of... It's like a dry gulch, a dried riverbed, which will then flood when there's heavy rain.
Is it connected with the word arid?
I guess so. Arroyo is dry.
Just
and a rock walkway circling the supposed landing site and wooden benches. But apparently they were built a quarter of a mile away from the actual site of Zamora's alleged sighting, because of local rumours that the original site was contaminated by radioactivity. Why would they rely on rumour before we better not build it there because I've heard a rumour it might be radioactive, and that's something you can easily check, isn't it?
Okay, I'm gonna stick my tinfoil hatted head on with this and say I think that was a rumour put about by the government conspiracies to keep people away from this landing site, so they didn't go near it and either contaminate it by, or while they did their investigations, or basically people didn't go and find the truth. Or maybe it was genuinely radioactive from the landing itself. Who knows?
Well, you can easily check. I imagine it's not hard to get a Geiger counter and see if there's any.
It's not. I've got one.
Yeah, there you go.
I've got one. I use it as part of my crop circle.
Of course.
Investigation.
So did anybody else see this craft?
Not that I'm aware of.
His colleague, Sergeant Chavez, arrived a bit later, and when he arrived, Zamora led him to some burning brush. And other police officers arrived, and they noticed patches of smouldering grass and brush.
So you've got evidence of it having been there, albeit circumstantial evidence. It's not conclusive evidence.
You've got evidence of a fire.
Yeah. Okay. But you know what? It's that time in the show when we summarise our thoughts on the event. So, Neil, what do you think Lonnie Zamora, was he making it all up? Did he see something that he misinterpreted? What? You tell me.
I'm going to come down firmly and say, I don't know. He says he saw something. Who am I to say, no, he didn't? I mean, it's nearly 50 years ago. Poor old Lonnie Zamora sadly has since died. He got so fed up with people asking him about this that he took a job managing a gas station, petrol station for our English listeners, and died in 2009 from a heart attack. So I'm not going to speak ill of the dead. I don't know what he saw or what he thought he saw. The attempts to explain it away seem laughable.
Mm-hmm.
They seem less credible, or certainly at odds with his description of what he saw. I don't think they're credible explanations. Maybe the testing of a lunar landing device, but
I think that's probably in my head the most credible of them all.
I don't think it is, because I've seen the documentary footage of testing lunar landing devices, and they didn't actually fly them very far. They just had to learn how to control them, to basically get it up into the air, hover it a bit, then bring it down in a way that doesn't kill you. And in fact,
like flying a house brick.
Apparently, it was very hard to control. There is footage of is it Neil Armstrong trying to fly one? He loses control and he presses the eject button, and the thing crashes and explodes. It was very hard to.
I hadn't
fly.
Seen that.
They certainly wouldn't have been taking it for a spin around the surrounding countryside.
No, but could have been a prototype one that was later rejected or something. I don't know. I'm pure hypothesizing.
The humanoid figures that he saw, are we getting into the whole, now these people are very small and these people are far away kind of? Is that what he saw? Was that just his perspective?
Father Ted, yeah. These cows are very small and these are far away. Could it be a question of perspective? Well, I mean, as a police officer, he's trained to make observations. I like to think if it was a matter of perspective, he'd have been aware of that. I'd like to think. Well, I for one, I believe it. I think, he has seen an extraterrestrial, for want of a better term, or extra-dimensional or extra-temporal device, a vehicle. It is a bit odd that it's come with this flame, using a kind of a form of propulsion that we'd be familiar with on Earth. That I find strange, but it's not the first time we've heard that from UFO reports either. So, and it's not like, when we talk about these extraterrestrials or these EBEs, extra biological entities or extraterrestrial biological entities, we're not just necessarily talking about one species. There could be hundreds, thousands of different species out there visiting. We just don't know. So, I think he's definitely seen something. I think his reaction to it as well, that, he wanted to keep his head down later in life, and he got sick of people asking about it. Suggests he wasn't doing it for fame or glory or anything like that.
Because people have done that and then really not enjoyed the kind of notoriety that follows, and the subsequent interrogations and lie detectors. Polygraphs.
Let's not go down that route again. But so I think this is a genuine case. But what do you think, listeners? We always want to know what you think about these events. So do write in and let us know. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored. But the best way to get in touch and have a good conversation with us about these events is through our very special Discord channel, where we can chat directly and you can chat with other people who are like-minded. Now, there is only one way to get access to this Discord channel. That is by becoming one of our Patreon patrons. and you get access at any level. We have 9 different levels, starting with £1 a month, all the way up to a huge whopping one, and lots of things in between, lots of different rewards. So go over to patreon.com/Aliens Explored and check that out. So we'd love to hear what you think. Join us next time, though, when we're going to be hypothesizing and speculating on something, Neil. I know I haven't.
This is the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, I know it is. I've not. Normally, I tell you in advance what our subjects are going to be, but it's actually something you raised quite some time ago, and I thought, do you know what? We're going to talk about this one day. We are going to be discussing why is it that the media are so obsessed with anal probes.
Oh, that's a good one.
And it was all down to your fixations in earlier episodes, Neil, that we are going to be discussing it. So
I seem to remember that I was obsessed with why are the media obsessed with anal probes.
Okay, and that's exactly.
I think I was, although they do hold a fascination.
Well, we're going to be keeping it as clean as we possibly can, and we're going to be taking as serious a look at this as we possibly can as well. So do join us for that one. In the meantime, keep watching these weird and wonderful crafts and hot air balloons and the skies.
And let us know if you see any. We'd love to hear about it.
Indeed. Absolutely. Take care for now.
Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Fomes. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.